Tell you what, there's no better way to start. That's a good start.
156.
Nice. 156. Not bad. And I got to tell you, John, people over at the street are pretty psyched about things. They better be anyway. This thing is it's hitting pretty strong. Love it.
Yep. Certainly liking it, Pete. Almost as much as I like your BHG, that Bright Health call yesterday. Because yesterday, folks, if you guys were watching and listening, you perhaps heard Pete talking about Bright Health and how he didn't think the worst was over just yet.
This company has struggled. They're a Minnesota company. I know them well. I don't know where this stops, John, because they just cannot get things right. And when you look at the balance sheet, it's amazing that they're still even operating. At some point, can't you show me how you're going to make money? Because they haven't been able to do that yet. The free cash flow is a negative $1.4 billion. That's a bit of a problem, I would say. And they're bleeding pretty bad.
I'm right there with you. It's a don't touch for me.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what he said. And you know what? Stock traded down to $13.84 this morning, Pete. So it had closed yesterday at $15.10, which was a brutal day for it. And then it traded down hard again today. So anybody that was listening, taking some notes or maybe paying attention, they did okay on that trade, Pete. So nicely done. Nicely done.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. And now let's hit the macro minute, man. Enough about yesterday, more about today.
Yep. Macro minute. It's still all just about the debt ceiling and whether or not the 14th Amendment even does give this or any president the wiggle room. It does not. The only thing the 14th Amendment does, folks, is it gives the executive, the chief executive, the president, the ability to break deadlocks for budget talks. This is not a budget discussion. This is raising the debt limit. And so even Barack Obama told his then Vice President Biden, you can't use the 14th Amendment, but they keep talking about it, Pete.
A lot of talk and zero action, John. Even McCarthy, I mean, this is not a political thing. You and I are not trying to take sides on this thing, Republican, Democrat. We've already talked about that. They've all done it. They've all kicked it down the road, and they're all a bunch of freaking clowns. But that being said, here's the reality of it all. Yes, he's optimistic, but somebody's got to make a deal. There is no deal, so there's not a whole lot to talk about, and they're going to kick this thing to the 11th hour. That's my dog.
That is a fact, folks. Just keep an eye on it, but that is how it will play out. And hopefully they don't tease the dragon, and you can perhaps see a little segment that we did yesterday on teasing the dragon. All right. Fantastic futures.
Fantastic futures.
I always love that, Pete. Fantastic futures. And today's fantastic futures from me, orange juice. It's up 40% on the year. So frozen concentrated orange juice futures, you know, we all know that's the Trading Places trade. Well, it's up 40% on the year. It's up 6% today. So when you're looking for food inflation and so forth, we didn't even have a big freeze in Florida this year, did we, Pete?
We did not, John. We've had interesting weather. We all know about Ian back in September, but Florida's been interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit about my favorite thing in the world right here, coffee. How about that? Coffee futures. John, back in January on the 11th, we were at 142 for coffee. We got as high as 204 in mid-March, I think, or maybe it was April. Now we're trading right around 187. That's still up significantly. Keep an eye on this thing. I'll tell you, guys like me, guys like you, people who like anything to do with the coffee world, and let me tell you something, it is perking you up. If you're paying attention, those prices are going up, up, up. They never seem to come down, John. As a matter of fact, Starbucks has made this an absolute phenomenal deal. When a coffee goes up, they go, jeepers, creepers, guys. Coffee prices are going up. When it goes down, they just stick with the prices again, and they wait for the next run to the upside. So just be aware of that. Just be aware of that. A little gamesmanship going on.
Oh, yeah, just a little bit, Pete. Let's talk a little bit about a stock that was $19 stock yesterday, opened near 21 today, ran to 23, Pete, and is still higher by, let's see, $2.22, which is about 11.5%. And that is Quantrix Corporation, QTRX. That's QTRX. Now, they're life sciences company, and they put out some notes about this one. Goldman takes them to a buy. This one, Pete, is up 30% year to date. I mean, what a run this one's had.
Yeah, the Goldman analyst, as you said, he went from neutral to buy. That was pretty big. How about this? He went with a price target of 13 and jumped it all the way up to 27, John. I mean, that's a pretty dramatic move to the upside. When you do look at what they are fundamentally, they're actually hanging in there pretty good. You don't look at it and just get scared and say, hey, I'm going to run away from this thing. But they've got to prove to us at some point in life they're going to actually make a little bit of money. They haven't done it yet. They lost another 16 cents this last quarter, which was better than predicted. And by the way, a year ago, they lost 49 cents. So they've improved. Are they going to continue to improve? Clearly, the analyst is thinking that is the case. We'll see if that remains the case as we go forward. I'm not ready to jump on this one just yet, John. They've got to show me the money, and they haven't done it yet.
And I misspoke, Pete, when I said up 30% for the year. No, they're up 30% in the month of March,
Right.
May rather, in the month of May. They're up 100% on the year.
Not bad.
So,
not bad.
yeah, you just got to know when you're buying one like this that you are buying it on that fear of missing out that some people have, or FOMO. All right, Yelp. Yelp was up double digits, and the reason was simple. TCS Capital confirmed that they sent a letter to the board of directors. That was speculated on yesterday, Pete, but it didn't move the stock like it is today. Today, it's like zoom from the lower left to the upper right. It just took off. And they were basically saying maybe this one should either be bought or merged, Pete.
Yeah, it's interesting, John, because you just said Zoom, number one. We're going to be talking about that next. But number two, how about this Yelp? This thing, when you look at the balance sheet here, John, you look at the fundamental side of them, everything stands out as very good. Free cash flow, absolutely incredible. When you look at their cash to debt, that looks pretty great. When you look at their PE, we're talking about 12s and 13s. This is a company that certainly has a lot of room to the upside, one would think. And so it's very understandable why there's so much excitement about this name right now. We'll see how it really can play out. But I'll tell you what, I would not be shorting it. I would not be worried about looking at puts. I would be very interested in looking at some calls to the upside, because I don't think this name is done. I think there's plenty of room still to go.
Yeah, and one of the names they talked about merging with, Pete, because Yelp wasn't making that discussion. That was TCS. Yeah. They thought that Angie's List, now it's just called Angie, A-N-G-I. But they thought that would be a good merger partner for Yelp. Now, Yelp's bigger, probably by 50% or something like that, bigger market cap wise than Angie. But nonetheless, there could be a little something there, some crossover usage and so forth. We'll have to see how powerful TCS is. But right now, the driver to the upside is this discussion and this letter that they sent to the board.
Yep.
All right, Pete, you mentioned Zoom. I'll let you kick it off. Zooming to the downside.
Yeah, and the problem is this, John. When you look through their earnings, you look through the report, everything actually looks pretty good. I mean, even their guidance, they raised their full year guidance. So you'd say, well, Pete, why is this thing down? It was up last night, by the way, but then flipped around. Why is it down? Well, because they actually are showing some signs of slowing, and that is always an issue. Everybody loves growth, but when the growth starts to wane a little bit and starts to go the wrong way, John, that's a problem. And I think that's the read-through right now of what people are looking at with Zoom. Is it a great company? Yes. Did they do incredible during the pandemic? Absolutely. Can they continue to do well? Sure, but at a much slower pace. And I think that's what people need to brace for.
Yeah. And when you've got a company, folks, I know all of you who are really dedicated to the science of trading stocks have looked at things like this, and you see what Pete's talking about as far as earnings, important. After a certain amount of time, you've got to be dropping money to the bottom line. The second thing that's really important is when you comp or compare them to other stocks, you got 180, 190 PE. There aren't a lot of stocks that have ever justified that, Pete. Now, there are some, and perhaps even some AI stocks that are, everybody's favorite right now. But when you have stocks that have those PEs, as they come back to earth, all of a sudden, so does the stock price. And I think that's what we're watching right before our eyes in the case of Zoom. All right. Yep. What about CureVac, Pete? Because this one, they had, a number of treatments for COVID and other maladies, and they were using an mRNA technology. And all of a sudden, everybody was experts at mRNA technology. Pfizer certainly was. And there are a couple other companies that were using this to make their vaccines. But guess what? CureVac said, we had the patents. What do you think, Pete?
I think they've got a case. If they had the patents, John, it certainly seems to me that they have a case. I will say this. This is a company that when you look at them, you get a little bit concerned. They got a big cash burn right now. That's been a real problem for them. That's something that I think is concerning. But you also look at the rest of the pipeline that they've got. They've got some stuff in, phase 2, phase 3, sort of, not much in phase 3. And that I think is a bit of a problem as well. But I think that under the circumstances, John, I am no lawyer. I'm not trying to pretend to be one. But if this suit is correct on the dates and everything else and all of that what transpired, I think they're going to be owed some real money when it comes time. And that would be a huge thing for this company because that would be something they desperately need because their cash burn, as I say, is really, really high.
It's about a $2.8 billion company, folks. It was $650 at the beginning of the year, $640. Today it traded all the way up to $11. So not quite a double, but a pretty nice move. The 52-week high, though, is nearly 20. So to Pete's point, if they get a couple $billion from a few of these guys like Moderna and like Pfizer that have used this mRNA technology and may have infringed on their patents, well, then I think Pete's right. They're going to get a big check, maybe 2 big checks or more. All right, Pete. Now we get to gloat about sports because we both were lucky enough to be on the right side of a sports trade and or bet in the last few weeks, and that has paid off big.
Yeah, well, load management and the LA Lakers, they go hand in hand. And who is the king of load management? Well, let's see. Maybe it's LeBron James. Here's the interesting part, John. You want to talk about a guy and compare him now to Jokic, because that's what I think we have to do. Obviously, they swept him. 4-0. That's huge. That's a big number. Denver is the team this year. They've been a great team, and LA, they weren't as highly ranked. We all know that. But here's the reality of it all, John. So in the regular season, LeBron averaged 29 points a game. That's not too bad, right? I mean, that's pretty great. Of course, he only played in every other game. But outside of that, he did a great job. That being said, how about in the postseason? He didn't really show up as well, did he? Because he was averaging 24 points a game. Now, you look at his numbers, and I'll read them off for you in a second, but you look over at Jokic, John, he averaged 24 a game during the season. Postseason, 30 a game. That shows me a gamer, a guy who shows up when it truly does matter, right? I mean, that's really the question is, who shows up? Who shows up in the fourth quarter or the second half? Well, the Denver Nuggets. Yesterday, when they had their opportunity, John, the Lakers scored 73 points in the first half, 38 in the second half. Apparently, the load management just started to fall apart for these guys. The Nuggets, on the other hand, had 55 points in the second half. But here's the best part. LeBron, not terrible numbers. He had 38 rebounds, 40 assists.
Wait. He didn't have 38 rebounds.
In 4 games, John.
Oh, okay.
In 4 games. In the 4 games that they lost, by the way, he had 38 rebounds and 4 assists. Now, on the other side of the ledger, Jokic had 58 rebounds, 57 assists, and his postseason has been absolutely amazing. So it just kind of shows you that, is he starting to fade enough? And LeBron kind of hinted at this. Is he going to stay around? Will he play next year, John? Is LeBron coming back with those silly little shoes you were talking about?
Well, he ain't going to play in those silly little shoes because it's not the color of the uniform.
Yeah.
So as you probably recall from the GOAT, Michael Jordan, when he came back with those Nikes, he was not allowed to wear those. He wore them, and he paid a fine for every game that he wore them. If LeBron wants to wear those ugly green ghost shoes, he can have them. They're not going to sell them to anybody. No one wants that. It looks like what the Laker fans were doing last night, Pete, which is puking, because that's the color of puke, those shoes. It truly is.
That's pretty good.
Now, as far as LeBron being out of shape, just for grins, Pete, and do I think he's a great basketball player? Yes, I do. Is he the GOAT? No, he is not. Not even close. Kobe is better than LeBron. Shaq might be better than LeBron. But, I'll let other people who are more knowledgeable on the subject decide who should be right up there behind Michael Jordan. But there is one GOAT. And it's Michael Jordan. And he didn't load manage, and he played nearly every minute of every game. Yeah, he sat here and there, but he didn't sit out entire games just because, we're playing the Grizzlies. They suck, and I could use a couple days off for load management or whatever. Anyway, the other thing is, Pete, that I Googled, is LeBron James out of shape? 9.3 million pages came up. 9.3 million. So the last time that he, by his own admission, was out of shape was 2017 when he was with the Cavs. And as you recall, Pete, he couldn't run up and down the floor. He was having trouble. And he says, I got to get myself back into good shape. At 38, I'm a little older than that. I can tell you it takes a lot longer to get back into shape. You got to constantly try to maintain your shape, because every day it's like time decay of an option. It's shrinking down like that. Anyway, let's hit the second sports story of the day. We've done enough bashing of LeBron.
Well, deservedly so. Let's go to the NHL, John. Bobrovsky. No one ever heard of the guy. Here's for all the right reasons, right? He's a goalie for the Panthers, who are a number 8 ranked team going into these playoffs, and they haven't looked like it, John. As a matter of fact, in this particular group of playoffs, 3 in a row, they've gone to overtimes in the first 2. They did not have to go into one last night. But you want to talk about great games and these number 8 seeds. We talked about the Heat. Today we're talking about the Panthers. The Panthers are unreal, but Bobrovsky, the goalie, how about these stats, John? He's given up 3 goals in the 3 games against Carolina, a total of 3. He's had 132 saves. Just to let that sort of sink in for a second. So the guy's had 135 shots on him. He's let in 3, but he stopped 132 of them. That's a pretty daggone impressive thing that he's been up to. He's played in 10 playoff games already, 10 wins, and the number 2 in save percentage in the playoff run right now. The guy's like at 95% or something like that. It's unbelievable what he's been able to do and the staggering moves, because let's not forget, these guys had a 4 overtime game as well, John, that adds up. When you talk about the number of minutes that this goalie has had to be on the ice in these first 3 games, it's extraordinary. So I think everything is kind of falling in place for Miami. The Heat are looking good. The Panthers are looking good. But Bobrovsky, this goalie, he really is something special in the playoffs.
Sergey.
Yeah,
that's
Sergey.
right.
Russia.
Sergey is the man. He's played tremendously. He was one of the top goalies anyway, Pete. So like you said, he had a rough patch, maybe, if you want to call it that, where, either sometimes it's not the goalie, sometimes it's the defense lets down a little bit at certain points in the season, and maybe that's what happened. But he certainly got hot at the right time, and he's one of the top goalies in the game. played for the Flyers, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Columbia Blue Jackets, or whatever, the Columbus Blue Jackets, whatever that is. I know it's an NHL team, folks, but stupid name. But anyway, he is an excellent goalie, a Russian goalie. And I'm telling you, Pete, there are so many of those Russians in the NHL.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure they're damn happy to be out of Russia, especially with what's going on over there right now. Even if they love their country, they, have to just feel that they're lucky to not be there while this stuff is going on, the battle with Ukraine, the invasion, and so forth. But I think this guy is a hell of a great athlete, and he could be the guy that they've hitched their wagon to that takes them all the way to the Stanley Cup, Pete.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, John, because, you always want to see the players that rise to the top, right? I mean, it's one thing, and we talk about it all the time. It's quarterbacks, right? You look at quarterbacks and say, yeah, who does it with 2 minutes to go? Who does it when the pressure is on? In basketball, it was always, hey, Michael Jordan was not afraid to take that ball and shoot it, and he'd usually put it in. So it's the ballers in us, and the guys right now, when you look at Bobrovsky in the goal, he's done an amazing job in this series, done an amazing job in the previous series. It's just incredible to watch certain guys just rise to the occasion. And that is the wonderment of sports. I mean, it's something we absolutely love. It's Ohtani in baseball, throwing the ball, hitting the ball, doing all that kind of thing. The guys who react, those are the guys you want. Those are the guys who should get paid, by the way. And it's kind of fun to see what's going on right now down in Miami.
Yeah. And by the way, Pete, we both know that hockey franchises have been cheap for a long time. We've also talked about how with the Senators' bids coming in from the likes of Ryan Reynolds and maybe Snoop Dogg, as well as some other conglomerates, that we might see, the first $1 billion trade, even though some teams may already be worth $1 billion in hockey. Most of them were just a couple $100 million or even under that figure a couple years ago. But they're not seeing the same sort of acceleration in prices for the players, Pete, because this guy, Sergey, he makes $6 million a year. $6 million is like a journeyman linebacker now, Pete.
It is crazy. By the way, I got a bonus for you, John. How about this? I don't know if you saw this. Tom Brady, you know what he's doing? He's throwing a little money with the Las Vegas Raiders, man. Bring it on, Tom. God, I love it. He's getting into the franchise world, and a team that a lot of people thought maybe he'd go quarterback with. Instead of that, Tom's going to be part owner. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And I bet, Pete, that some other people will come up behind him and maybe say to Mr. Davis, you want to sell more than just the 10% that Tom's going to buy or whatever it is, Pete? I wouldn't be surprised. Well, we will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time, folks. Be sure to tune in for the Rebels Edge then. And we appreciate all of you. Please share this with your friends. We'll see you tomorrow.